Hey everyone, Sweeney here, and welcome to Friday Reload number 32. Major Google My Business update, huge opportunity in SEO that happened basically overnight, and the evolution of a salesperson, plus much, much more. So, what we do with the Friday Reload, if this is your first, is we aim to get you caught up on what you might have missed in the week. So, we hand curate the best posts, news, videos, case studies, tactics, tips, tricks, software, anything you can imagine from the week. We curate it and we give it to you in the Friday Reload. And this is for the week of December 12th. So, big news, to start us off here. Google rolls out some major updates to the My Business guidelines. So, they've rolled out a major update. The new guideline offers much more concrete examples and clarifies a number of situations, particularly multi-practitioner listings and their naming. So this comes to us from Mike Blumenthal of blumenthal's.com. Now, some of the obvious highlights. Descriptors of any sort are not allowed. Category should be the more specific category, not the overarching general category. Increased name and category consistency amongst multi-location chains. Two or more brands at the same location must pick one name. If different departments are to have their own page, they must have unique categories. Practitioners' pages in multiple location practices should have their name only and not the name of the practice. Solo practitioners can only use the format of practice practitioner, and virtual office are not allowed unless they are staffed. Now, if they are staffed, you'd think they are virtual. So he goes deeper into this in a two-part series. So Google My Business Guidelines, a detailed comparison of new and old, part one. And then he also has part two, where he covers chains, brands, and departments. So head on over to digitaltriggers.io/FR32 to get those links and check that out. Now, next up, we have what's next for Twitter advertisers, video, SEO, and expanded audience. So when it comes to the inner workings of its advertising network, Twitter tends to hold its cards close to its chest. However, a recent presentation they made to analysts uncovered some previously unknown insights into how Twitter ads really work and what it has planned for the future. So a few of these: native video coming to Twitter by summer 2015, changed the way you think of Twitter audience. So they're kind of reworking that. Twitter's recently gained a sudden interest in SEO, and Twitter is once again an ad network to watch. Though I would argue that for the past year, it's definitely been an ad network to watch. Now, some of the analytics and numbers that they threw out: 248, the number of active monthly users on Twitter, by the way, 248 million. Currently, there's 60,000 active advertisers on Twitter. 9 million is the number of potential small business Twitter advertisers. That's an interesting number. 29%, the new ad formats account for almost 1/3 of Twitter's ad revenue. 185 billion number of impressions on content delivered per quarter, and 500 million, which is the number of tweets published every day. Next up, we have a nice feature. Facebook search finally lets you search for posts again. So more than a year after it promised the post search ability, the social network will roll out for English language users in the United States. So you can search posts. I mean, this is a simple thing, but it is nice. Next up, 55 US mobile facts every marketer needs for 2015. Heidi Cohen brings some awesome mobile statistics to the table. I generally like to throw statistics and things of that nature into the news related section. Now, there's 5 that really stand out here without diving into all 55. So let's rattle them off. 65% of US smartphone users check their phones within 15 minutes of rising. 64% check their phones within 15 minutes of going to bed. 87% of millennials always have their smartphone at their side day and night. 78% of millennials spend over 2 hours a day using their smartphones. And 68% of millennials consider their smartphone to be a personal device. Now, none of these numbers are hugely surprising to me, but like we keep saying, mobile phones are taking over, and you need to keep that in mind. Next up, we have Chief Mark Tech. So, Chief Marketing Technologist blog. This is by Scott Brinker. He's saying what will happen with marketing technology in 2015. So, he kind of stares into the crystal ball a little bit. Now, here's his 7 strongly held beliefs about marketing technology in 2015. Number 1, marketing technologists will multiply. Number 2, the marketing technology landscape will grow, not shrink. Number 3, the ISV ecosystems around major platforms will flourish. So I think this is when you have third-party apps such as for things like Salesforce or Marketo and these other larger Salesforce, and these other larger marketing platforms. Number 4, the adoption of marketing middleware will increase. So he mentions here tag management systems, data management systems, things of that year. Number 5, the line between software vendors and service providers will blur. Number 6, several big companies will be new entrants in the marketing tech space. So it looks like Dell's starting to make an entrance. LinkedIn also made an acquisition and might make an entrance. And then lastly, 7, all of marketing technology will be hot, but some categories will be really hot. Kind of funny, but all good points. And if you're the kind of person who likes to look ahead, this is one of those you need to check out. Next up, Tumblr introduced new action buttons. So they have introduced basically little buy buttons for Etsy, Artsy, Kickstarter, or do something. So whenever you post it to Tumblr, there's pledge buttons or buy buttons. This is interesting because, as mentioned last week, Tumblr is on the rise. Tumblr's growing, growing, growing. And I mean, outside of WordPress, there's definitely space for that kind of blog platform. So something to keep in mind, especially if you're in the e-commerce space. I can only imagine if you know, in this day and age, it's so easy to reach certain social influencers. I mean, there's plenty of girls that have tons of followers on Instagram. And if you can hit the demographics right, I imagine free giveaways and things like that. You can just do ridiculous numbers if you're strategic about it. So moving forward, now we're going to kind of move into our top stories, but we have one more statistic that I'm going to go back to the blog to tell you about. And this one is a Radium 1 study finds 59% of all content sharing activity occurs via dark social. So dark social is email, texting, and forums, compared to 31% that is done via Facebook and then 10% on all other social channels combined. This is an interesting point because, I mean, look at that. More than double the social sharing activity is occurring on a platform not Facebook. And I mean, I often think, and this one was a kind of big heads up for me that, like, oh, everyone's just sharing things on Facebook. Well, no, people are texting things, people are emailing things. And it's the kind of thing you want to be aware of in your content strategy. All right, time to move into the stories of the week. This first one is pretty nice. What we learned after spending $50,000 in LinkedIn ads. So Visible spent $50,000 in LinkedIn ads, and they share 6 different things they learned. Number 1, it's great for driving leads from gated content. Number 2, advanced targeting requires close attention. Number 3, use sales development reps to improve lead to opportunity conversions. Number 4, track every ad and use direct sponsored content. Number 5, beware the mobile user on LinkedIn. And number 6, it needs more work in order to make it world class. Now, we also have your quick tip of the week, and this comes to us from SaaS Weekly. Use odd numbers in your copywriting in marketing. So numbers like 5, 7, 9, etc. is going to get you more opens and clicks. And we have the source for that article on the blog. Next up, this is the Slack research hack. So if you've never heard of Slack, and I'm embarrassed to say that I have never heard of Slack coming into this, it's basically a chat service for companies. So what you can do, especially if you're selling a B2B product or service, you can log into Google Analytics, select acquisition and referrals from the side menu, search for Slack, and then see which companies are talking about your product. Now, here's another little hint. It also works for HipChat. Next up, this is the big one. This is the big bambino. So the big Bing SEO and ranking factors, the biggest opportunity in SEO today. So a lot of people do not pay attention to Bing SEO or ranking factors and purely focus on trying to rank in Google and nothing else. However, the last couple of years, Bing's market share has slowly been increasing as Microsoft has been trying to challenge Google in the search arena. Now, if you're paying attention last week, you will have noticed a fundamental shift in search that's going to affect us all. He's dubbing the term the Big Bing to mark the day that a simple browser update changed the world of search forever. So, what happened? The new default search engine changed to Yahoo for North America, and this is for a Firefox update. So, what does that actually mean? US search share for Yahoo jumped from 9.6% to 29.4% overnight for the users of the new Firefox. Google usage dropped from 82% to 63% in 24 hours. It's a very big shift. And then he goes on to prove his point of, is Bing traffic valuable, the great Bing advantage, Bing marketing. He has some tools and resources, top Bing ranking factors, and basically rounds it out there. So don't forget, we can get closed-minded with just Google and Facebook and these other large networks. There's traffic everywhere. Next up, love this article. Things that don't scale. Boatbound shares 4 surprising ways to turn random strangers into paying fans. So if you've never heard of Boatbound, basically it's like Airbnb for boats. So you have a boat, you can rent it out, captain or no captain, and it is fully insured. I consider this hustling, things that don't scale. Commonly called in startups, they call it things that don't scale, also known as hustling. So they were able to leverage offline promotions, useful items, and direct mail to achieve a year-over-year growth of 1,100%. So what did they do? They did direct mail. So they mailed postcards to several thousand owners of a specific boat brand. They had, I think they said 90% of the people visiting the site as a direct result of the mail. They also met in person. They met in person with their users, and that's made a huge difference. Any owner, they take them to lunch, coffee. I mean, in the initial, you just got to get boats on board. Events and parties. So they had some big events at Fort Mason, or whenever there were big events, rather, their team would go out and hand out hundreds of koozies. When they're in Seattle for their market launch during Seafair, it's the biggest boating weekend in Seattle. One of the awesome boat owners had special access to the log boom, an area on Lake Washington where hundreds of boats tie up for the weekend to watch the hydroplane races. He offered to take us on his boat so we could pass out swag to the boaters. We hadn't planned or prepared for this, but typically brands pay a lot of money for access to this area, so we didn't want to miss out on the huge opportunity to pull off a massive activation campaign during a huge boating weekend in a key market. So what they did is, with just 2 hours of notice, they stuffed their rental car full of as much swag as they could fit, and they headed down to the dock. Now, once they got down to the log boom, they found out that a very popular beef jerky company had asked the captain to pass out packets of jerky to the crowd. However, the jerky packets were too light and couldn't be thrown far enough to reach the boats. So they started stuffing them inside the koozies and wrapped a few of them in the t-shirts and threw in a captain's hat. Instantly, they had nice little bundles of goodies that could be thrown 50 to 60 feet. It went extremely well, and everyone was very happy for the koozies and the jerky. Sometimes you just got to hustle, people. Now, they also talk about going the extra mile for their customers. So sometimes they'll show up and just meet renters at the dock and give them little swag bags. So they'll give them captain hats, koozies, and t-shirts. And they say the key here is the timing, the content, and being personal. Just really overall, a good post, a lot of cool tactics. This are real things that a company did to have success. And I'm sure you can find a way to apply them in your business. Next up, this is JS Marketing, and it's Instagram lead generation. How to generate 18,500 website visitors through case studies. So this is a very long and thorough analysis by James Smith on how Instagram, one of the fastest growing social media platforms today, may help you generate leads, sales, and boost traffic to your website. Now, first off, you want to consider who uses Instagram. So they go on to say here that it's used by over 80% of upper income US teen girls. Now, there are other people that use Instagram as well. Don't get it wrong. But you always want to keep demographics and be aware of them whenever you're trying to leverage any of these platforms. So they go on to talk about a few of the different steps that you can use. For example, using 7 hashtags for maximum engagement, quick activity to increase followers, explode your growth by creating a contest, and use science to determine what to post. And they have a few other tips. I think 10 in all. Let me see. Yep, 10 in all. Next up, the evolution of a salesperson selling in the connected age. This is so cool. It looks like a little flip book, basically. And this comes to us from Salesforce. The content obviously is cool too. But I mean, look at this. It literally looks like a cool little pixelated flip book. So, I mean, it's worth seeing just for the beautiful design on its own, but also because it's some great content. That one, you're going to have to go to the blog to get the link for. Once again, digitaltriggers.io/FR32. Next up, I love this image. This image is hilarious. The lazy man's way to find meetup.com local link opportunities in 5 seconds or less. So basically what you can do is you can do a search and find out of local meetups, which ones aren't sponsored. You simply sponsor the meetup and then you get a nice juicy link. And the image, for those of you that you're wondering, is a guy with a orange hunter's hat and a rifle, and he's sitting on his porch in a hot tub, where you can tell it's obviously cold out, and he has a beer by him. So kind of funny to think that, guy's sitting in his hot tub while hunting. Anyways, moving forward. The top 10 conversion rate optimization tips we learned from interviewing 60 plus experts in 2014. So Lead Pages has their own podcast called Conversion Cast, and they are actually the inspiration for Triggercast. Well, not fully, but the Conversion Cast part made me think, Triggercast. Okay, that'll work for digital triggers. So they share a few of their favorite conversion tips gleaned from their 60 plus interviews, and they've had a lot of great interviews. So number 1, Aweber, test small changes in high impact areas. Number 2, test giving customers a choice. Number 3, monitor new features on your social media channels and test accordingly. Number 4, spotlight the value that you're adding. Number 5, make sure critical number informs your Facebook strategy. Number 6, don't focus exclusively on conversion rate. Number 7, you don't have to compromise your principles to increase your conversion rate. Number 8, boost your webinar attendance rate with text messaging. Number 9, sometimes it pays to challenge conventional wisdom. And then number 10, use the skyscraper technique to increase your traffic. Next up, the decade is half over, where SEO has been and where it's going. So columnist Tom Schmitz takes an in-depth look at how SEO has changed over the past 5 years, complete with insights, observations, and predictions for the future. So here's your quick rundown. Google got intelligent. There's been an overall death of SEO, a death of page rank, death of keyword targeting, the death of link building, and the death of Matt Cutts. So a lot of things, according to him, have died. But honestly, this is a very intelligent article and a good look at SEO and where it's going moving forward. Next up, and you guys might find this one a bit interesting, how spending $162,000 on clothes helped make me $692,000 on clothes. So Neil Patel spends a bunch of money on clothes and somehow turns it into an ROI. He talks about how fancy clothes can make you more money and how clothes can help build relationships. So in short, by looking fancy, people believed him to be more successful, more serious, and thus wanted to do more business with him. This doesn't surprise me to a degree. I know when I really made an effort and, looked at different jackets and got my clothes tailored and, really looked at different shoes and got, a really nice pair of leather shoes and went to an event, I want to say sometime this year with, kind of like a more updated outfit, me being a younger looking man, I never know how that's going to work out, right? Because sometimes I see the guy in t-shirt and flip-flops and I'm like, man, he must be killing it, right? Because he just doesn't care how he looks. But I do find that every time that I quote unquote dress up, I play the part, I wear the jacket, I wear a nice pair of tailored jeans, I wear a nice dress shirt, I wear a good pair of shoes, I wear a nice watch. It really does have an effect. I mean, it really seems to have an effect. So Neil digs into that more. He also links to an article he posted back in 2011 that I think will be a bit more applicable for most of you. And he calls this Why You Should Dress to Impress, the ROI of Fashion. He says, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but people judge you based on the clothes you wear. I don't care if you're walking down the street or sitting in a business meeting. People are constantly looking at what you're wearing. Over the past 10 years, I've dressed like a bum, worn decent clothes, and dressed like a boss. I must admit, there's a huge ROI in wearing nice clothes, especially in the business world. Next up, it's time for tool time, which is pretty weak this week. Not much going on. So we have Noise.io, so Noiz.io. And this is for the Mac. And basically, it just makes nice little noises in the background. So think, the sounds of being next to a fireplace or a seashore, things like that. What's great, it's ambient sound. And what's great about this is it's free for Mac. Now, if you don't have a Mac, a good alternative I like is Simply Noise. So Simply Noise, let me pull her up. Simply Noise is a white noise generator. So I'll usually use it for pink noise or brown noise or sometimes just white noise. Next up, we have a link for 24 awesome sites with stunning free photos. You can never get enough photos in this online place. We all know that. Also check out Pexels, Pexels. Then we have a few more stories. So 39 ways to increase open rates. They've split it up. This is Email Lab, no L, just emailab.com. And they've split it up into 4 main categories. Number 1, increasing deliverability, building your list better, increasing visibility, and increasing relevancy. So there's 39 different ways among these 4 main categories. Then we have 10 Pinterest tips for smart brand. So they say that Twitter is mostly about what I'm doing, Facebook is about who I am, and Pinterest is about who I want to be. So Pinterest's aspirational nature is a serious advantage that your brand should be making the most of. And unlike most other social networks, Pinterest content tends to have a longer lifespan, around a week, whereas Twitter's 5 to 25 minutes and Facebook's about 80 minutes. Also, users are more prone to buy, and referral traffic is reliably high against all brand categories. The network's appeal is only growing. A recent Marketing Land article claims that terms around beauty, hair, and home have seen an increase of 400% year over year on Pinterest, while terms in categories like health and electronics have increased by a still substantial 50%. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you have a large female following, you need to be on Pinterest. Next up, we have the No Hype Guide to Content Creation. No Hype Guide to Content Creation. So this is a very simple and clear infographic on how to create and curate good content in 9 easy steps. As you can see here, it's a beautiful infographic, not an Instagram. It's a nice infographic too, which makes things very easy. And then lastly, we have how to use Twitter ads for lead generation. Now I also have the honorable mentions. So honorable mentions tends to be articles that maybe are less focused on tactics. So sometimes it might just be an article on the state of the industry, or they're a little bit too niche to fit into the Friday Reload, or I just kind of ran out of space and these were good, but not quite good enough. So we have how to create emails your users want to receive, 7 ways to energize your user referral program, an in-depth interview with Nair Ayil on Hooked, how to build habit-forming products, SaaS Metrics 2.0, a guide to measuring and improving what matters, Ask Growth Hacker Community, what are your best practices for using content and retargeting? Really like that one. 3 reasons your marketing needs a better design focus. Love that one. No one's focusing enough on design. And then YouTube ads, getting the content right. So folks, that will be all for this week's Friday Reload. I do want to let you know that I have a special email going out tomorrow, and I want you all to pay attention and look for that. Other than that, enjoy your weekend and have a great Friday.